Nope. Call to order the City of Hayden, Idaho regular city council meeting. It's Tuesday, September the 10th, approximately 5 p.m. May we get a roll call of commission members, please?
Council President Roeder?
Yes.
Councilmember White?
Yes.
Councilmember DePriest?
Yep.
And Councilmember Schaefer?
Sure.
All right, would you please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? Tom, would you please lead us?
All right. Please repeat after me. I pledge allegiance to the flag
Of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
It always sounds so nice.
Okay, as far as additions or corrections tonight, I'm omitting item 5B, law enforcement. Lisa is going to be working with Captain Smart to establish a regular rhythm for the 2 meetings that we have so that City Council will receive, I think, a verbal report the first meeting of the month and then a written report at the end of each month. But for tonight, we have nothing. So I'm moving on to, or unless there are any other additions or corrections by anyone? I'm going to roll on to the first item, which is our proclamation for Constitution Week. I'm going to apologize in advance for those of you who zone out when you hear the word whereas. So whereas September 17, 2024 marks the 237th anniversary of the drafting of the Constitution of the United States of America by the Constitutional Convention, and whereas it is fitting and proper to accord official recognition to this magnificent document and its memorable anniversary, and to the patriotic celebrations which will commemorate the occasion, and whereas Public Law 915 guarantees the issuing of a proclamation each year by the President of the United States of America designating September 17 through 23 as Constitution Week. Now therefore, I, Alan Davis, Mayor of Hayden, Idaho, do hereby proclaim September 17 through 23, 2024 as Constitution Week in the city of Hayden, Kootenai County, state of Idaho, and ask our citizens to reaffirm the ideals the framers of the Constitution had in 1787 by vigilantly protecting the freedoms guaranteed to us through this guardian of our liberties, remembering that lost rights may never be regained. Okay. Moving on to the second item, which is the consent calendar, which consists of the approval of August 27th, 2024 City Council meeting minutes, approval of Hayden Real Life Ministries Harvest Fest event permit application and loudspeaker use request, approval of Ladder Real Estate Ladder Fest 2024 event permit application and loudspeaker use request, approval of Hayden Meadows Sidewalk Project change order number 2, approval of contract amendment with JUB Engineers for general engineering services, approval of the contract amendment with JUB Engineers for the Ramsey Road Gravity Sewer, Wyoming to Dakota, approval of independent contractor agreement with unlimited access to update City Hall security cameras, ratification of the August 2024 payroll, and approval of bills for payment. Anyone council can make a comment or make a motion.
I'd like to make a comment, Mayor, if I may. This is just a disclosure. I am a member of Real Life Ministries, and I know that it's on our consent calendar to approve the contract with them. And I can say that I have no influence on this, and I don't have a conflict of interest on it.
Very well. Any other comments? Anyone want to carry a motion?
Sure.
Thank you, Ed.
I move to accept the consent calendar as listed.
Second?
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion by council? May we get a roll call vote, please?
Councilmember White?
Yes.
Councilmember Schaefer?
Yes.
Council President Roeder?
Yes.
And Councilmember DePriest?
Yes.
Okay, normally in this part of the meeting, we do the visitor public comment period. I'm showing no request to speak, so I'll make a verbal to the audience. Does anyone in the audience have anything to present to council tonight? I'm hearing none, so we'll move on to new business. First item is 4A. Our first new business item tonight is to approve the agreement that enables Hayden to continue receiving law enforcement services from the Kootenai County Sheriff's Office. So with that in mind, council, I believe both our new business items tonight are just simply deliberations. Is that right? Lisa, we've got no additional materials to present, correct?
Unless there's questions of
Right.
staff, there's the information that's been provided to council is done so through the public record.
Okay.
And the only thing I would add to this action item is that the contract has been sent to the county attorney. It was sent last week and we've received no response, so as of this date. So even if there's approval of the contract tonight, there still could be a potential review depending on the county attorney's comments.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
That, Mr. Mayor,
Yes, please, go
that
ahead.
being said, should we possibly table it until we get it back and have the ability to make sure everything is what it's going to be?
No, I just want you to be advised that you may approve it tonight, and this happened last time too, if you remember. You approved the language, we sent it over to the county, they made some modifications and sent it back, and we brought it back in front of you again. I just want you to be prepared that if it comes back to you again, though, it'll just be on the narrow issues of whatever they change.
Okay.
Okay, are there any other comments?
Oh, go ahead.
Mr. Mayor, I just wanted to, for clarification's sake, this does provide for 10 deputies in the city? Is that what we have here?
The contract stipulates that there are 10 deputies assigned. And I know that our liaison with the sheriff's office, Captain Smart, has provided some testimony to the council about what that means with regard to some of the rover positions and the support services that we receive through the detectives division. But all in all, it's for those 10 deputies.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes?
Do you have something, Tom?
No, I do not.
Okay. I have a few items regarding the contract. Before I start, though, I'd like to say that I spoke with a few of the members of the Public Safety Commission about the contract, because they reviewed the contract last Tuesday, and I was at the meeting. And what I was told is that based on the crime stats that were provided by the county, which they have, they feel that the 10 deputies provide good public safety coverage for Hayden. So they were comfortable with 10 deputies, and I just wanted to tell you what my discussion was with them. With that said, I know that they looked at the contract from their experience as law enforcement, their career in law enforcement, and they said they made a unanimous vote that the contract looked good. So I want to report that. However, as a elected official that has a fiduciary responsibility to our citizens in Hayden, I looked at the contract, and I have a few items that I would like to suggest or propose to the existing contract. The first one is that if you read the contract in the addendum, we have one SRO, School Resource Officer, who is split 9 months that he covers the schools, and 3 months when school's out, he becomes a deputy. So 3/4 of his time is spent at the elementary schools. And I met Matt Creedon, good name, Matt, I like it. And actually, I met him, I have 4 grandkids that go to Dalton Elementary School, which is in the city of Dalton. And I had to pick up my youngest granddaughter to go to gymnastics class. And there I got to meet Matt in his working there, and I said, "Have you met my granddaughter yet?" And he said, "Well, not yet, but he says, I play football with all the kids, so I meet them eventually." And he's a lot bigger than all of them, so I hope he goes easy on them. And he came out with a box of pizza. He's a really nice guy, and I'm really thankful that we have resource officers at these schools for their protection. With that said, what I did discover last week with a little bit of research, I talked to the mayor of Dalton, is that the resource officer at Dalton Elementary, the city of Dalton doesn't pay for him. So we have, Matt covers Dalton, Atlas, and Hayden Meadows. And my concern is that we're paying, as a city, we're paying for a resource officer to be at Dalton Elementary, which is outside of our city. And even though the idea of my grandkids are being covered by that resource officer and protected, that's not the way it should be. And so I want our contract, we need to look into our contract to see how that can be adjusted. Because the cost for that resource officer for Matt Creedon is about $100,000. And if you figure 9 months out of the year, resource officer, that's $75,000. We do get from the school district $50,000 to help pay for the resource officer. So then there's a $25,000 that, the way I read it, is we're paying for, and that we're paying for that, if it's divided up equally, a third of that $25,000. So it's not a big number, but we have a responsibility, the fiduciary responsibility of our taxpayers, to ensure that the money we spend is being spent for the city of Hayden's health, safety, and welfare, not in other cities. And I think this could be easily corrected. And this is not a reflection of the sheriff's office. I think it's just one of those things that happen, but we need to address it in our contract so that it's clear that we're not paying for them.
Matt, do you, on that very good point, do you have any statistics? Because school districts aren't laid out by city boundaries. Do you know how many Hayden citizen children go to that school, the Dalton school?
I have no idea.
So it could be potentially that on the south end of Hayden, that some of our kids are going there?
Possibly.
If you look at the boundaries, I just looked at them, if you look at the boundaries of Dalton Elementary, of course, it's not, you can only see the boundary lines, you can't see the population, but there's a significant portion of it is the city of Hayden. Those students would be coming from the city of Hayden.
So is it possible some of the students in Dalton go to
Yes.
Hayden Meadows or Atlas? I mean,
Right.
so I think the point is, I don't want to make this a big research project and how many students are going where, and it could cost us a lot of money to figure that out. I just don't see that that's fair that we're spending money at another school in another city.
So if I could, Mr. Mayor?
Yeah, I was going to say, but to my point, if it's to the benefit of Hayden families, isn't that what our tax dollars are for? And it's a rhetorical question. It's just meant for us to have a more thorough discussion on it.
Well, then we should ask Dalton to pay for some of our resource officer for Atlas and Dalton. So that's why I say I don't want to get mire into all that. It's just, I think a third of this should be paid for by the city of Dalton, which Mayor said they're not paying for. So I don't want to pay for it. And that's my point.
Just to point out for the benefit of the discussion tonight, the contract with the county just stipulates that one of the 10 deputies will be a school resource officer. That's on I believe page 2 of the contract, under subsection 4A specifically. The payment or I guess the resources being spent in other school districts is really with the school districts itself. And I have made a phone call to the superintendent of operations to ask about that. I believe the matter is really, it lies with the school district, and I think we need to work with them on what that looks like in the city of Dalton. But as far as how we would amend the contract for this particular purpose, other than to restrict the use outside of the city limits, I think there might be some better goodwill being done by working with the school district and the city of Dalton, rather than excluding that in the contract. Does that make sense? Because I don't know how we would change the contract at this point.
I have, if I may, I have another issue that I'd like to bring up.
Well, before we jump off, I guess it'd be good to maybe hear from the rest of the council and how they feel about this. In other words, if, to Matt's point, is council in support of that? If so, would council hold up the contract based on it? Or would you prefer that another addendum is presented the next, say, 60 days for your approval? Go ahead, Ed.
Mr. Mayor, thank you. I understand what Matt's saying and the point he's making, and the fact that, you know, there's probably a lot of, I don't know, commingling, intermingling, whatever, of students who live in Hayden, going to these schools and vice versa, and the exercise in determining how many are going where and where they come from, and affixing a dollar amount to those students and the like. I don't know that we really want to go there, but I do think, as Lisa says, it would be good to take a look at it and see if it is a figure that should be addressed with maybe an addendum if it does come to that, as we're possibly going to get addendums when the contract comes back from the county. So in the next 30 to 60 days, we're possibly going to be tweaking with this anyway. So I don't think it could hurt to, you know, nose into it. If it's negligible or some kind of a wash, you know, I think we'd have to make that decision when we get a better understanding of exactly what the makeup of the situation is.
So just to be clear, the point I was trying to make was with the school district. The contract we have for school resource officers is separate of the contract we have with the county, and it's specific to the School District 271 of Kootenai County is what they call themselves here. And in particular, there is a section within the contract that says that the city will serve as the SRO in the public school located within the city of Hayden limits. I think that's the part where we need to take an addendum to with the school district about whether or not.
A school in the city limits, do we?
Yes, we have two.
Oh, Hayden Meadows, yeah.
Yes,
Yeah,
we have
yeah,
two
my bad.
schools.
Yeah.
What's the other one?
Meadows.
Atlas, that's right, yeah.
Yeah,
I
I
knew
don't know what I
that.
was thinking, yeah.
So there's another cost associated with the SRO, and that's the vehicles. You know, we're paying $95,000 for new vehicles, so it's not just the cost of the deputy, is that, you know, the use of a vehicle outside of Hayden, should we be paying for that? These are all, I know they're, again, I could just say, you know what, it doesn't matter, and, you know, there's fluff in this, and we gotta just, but I think that, being conscientious and trying to be fiscally conservative, we need to look at things like this that protect our citizens' tax dollars. But again, I don't want to spend a bunch of money studying something that's not going to save a lot, but it's just an issue that needs to be addressed. And I would hope that we would consider with the city, with the school district and with the county, how to fix this issue so it's very clear that we're not paying for an SRO officer at Dalton Elementary.
Any other comments?
I'll just add observation for context is that when we went through the budget exercise, there was some angst and controversy about whether we do 2 or 3% increase in taxes. And so this is not to beat a dead horse. All I wanted to say is that we're talking about things on roughly the same scale or magnitude. So if it's worthwhile making sure that the city is fully funded by doing a 3% tax increase, then we ought to also at least give deference to whether this is a legitimate issue about how we fund the school resource officers.
Are there any comments on this issue?
Yes, I would like to know what our options are on looking into this some more. Is this something that can be adjusted after the contract's signed, or do we need to hold off on the contract to look into it a little more? What are our options?
That's for you guys to discuss and give us direction. Matt, what's your proposal on that?
I just think that there needs to be some communication with the county and the school district to kind of solve it, bring clarity to it.
Can this,
And I don't know what that is, because you got 3 different entities dealing with it, but
Mr. Mayor, if I could, for the benefit of the council tonight and for the community that may be watching, is to let what I think is some assurances known that the contract that's presented before you is a contract that I believe we can successfully enter into, with the understanding that, again, like with everything that we do, that we get better at working with our partners in the area around the school resource officer, but I don't know that the contract is at risk of not being able to be fulfilled because of this. I think we can work towards that, and I do believe the answer lies with the school district, not the sheriff's office with regards to the contract. But that said, if council has issues with moving forward with signing this contract, I would ask for a level of specificity that you'd like me to go back and work on, because opening up the entirety of the contract likely would mean we'd have to go back to the Public Safety Commission as well. And that Public Safety Commission did recommend this for it.
And if we were to do that, how much of a delay would it add?
At least a month. Well, they don't meet again until December, so we'd have to have a special meeting.
So we would delay signing the contract, is what you're
Correct.
saying?
This contract is set to renew October 1, and so the idea is to get that before October 1. We don't have a lot of time between when we adopt a budget and get through this revised contract because of the nature in which the requirements are for us to get that budget adopted is usually in late August, early September. So it will be like this every year. The budget is adopted, then we bring the contract forward. So with regard to that time frame, but if we want to look at some specific issues with that, we certainly can bring those forward iteratively throughout the year as we work again with our community partners.
And so an addendum would handle that?
Again, you guys keep mentioning an addendum.
Well, you brought it up first, didn't you?
No, I did
Somebody
not.
did.
I said something to think about some type of whatever, that the sheriffs are looking at right now, that we might get something back, then we'll have to deal with that.
That was not an addendum. That's that you could adopt the contract tonight, approve it, but the county attorney may send back some revisions that you might need to look at later. That was it.
The addendum purpose would be with the school
And
resource
then
officer.
in relation to
Contract.
this, if we're going to use the term revision,
Yeah.
should, looking into the situation with the school district and the sheriff, and we find that, whatever the numbers may be, could a revision be made should those numbers prove to be in need of a revision?
I think what Lisa's saying, I don't want to speak for
No.
her, is that the addendum really would be with the school district contract. That's what she has in her hand, not
So-
the law enforcement services contract.
So we are paid by the school district for the school resource officer, not only the amount of time that they pay for half of that time, for that contracted service, and they pay for a portion of the vehicle expenses when we have them.
From the school district.
From the school district. It's not with the sheriff's office. So I think the clarity around this issue lies with a conversation at the school district level about whether or not the city needs to negotiate with the school district about services at Dalton Elementary in concert with the city of Dalton and what that looks like. The issue with the contract before you tonight is relative to the sheriff's office providing us a deputy that serves in this capacity. That deputy is currently doing that. To the degree at which we want to partner with our community neighbors, we need to have a conversation about that. But right now, it's currently being done. And as it's been brought to my attention, it's likely the city that has to work on that negotiation, not the sheriff's office with the school district.
You're saying the conversation is going on with City of Dalton?
No, the
I
conversation
mean, I'm
was,
sorry, the school districts?
yeah, I've initiated that conversation with the superintendent of operations. I left him a message, and I'm hoping to continue that. But with regard to the contract,
The law enforcement.
law enforcement contract services, yeah, that,
No, I get the message. You're saying the law enforcement contract is not the way to address this issue.
Right.
It's to go through the negotiations with the schools. And you're also, if I heard you correctly, saying that that's actually been brought to their attention and that, or at least we're
we're
starting.
initiating that, yeah. Unless, of course, there's a drastic difference in how you want to use that school resource officer as it relates to the contract. But I'm assuming that that's not the case because it's something we've continued to do and anticipate that revenue coming in for this next fiscal year.
Does council have any more questions?
Yes, I was going to ask about the vehicles. We're paying for 2 extra vehicles this year. Now, those aren't dedicated to the schools, to the school resource officers, are they? So that's not tied to this issue of the school resource officers. Is that correct?
I don't want to speak for the sheriff there. We have a representative here tonight. They can maybe clarify this if I'm wrong, but the vehicles are assigned to an officer. So if that officer is SRO, then there would be a vehicle assigned. To the degree at which I know or don't know regarding the 2 vehicles we're buying, where they're going, I wouldn't be able to speak to that. So it could maybe be the SRO this year, it may be not, but if it is, then we want to work with the school district to help offset that cost, because that is part of our contract with them.
So what I heard tonight is really good, because I had an issue, and hearing the different dynamics of it, it makes it clear now to me that between us and the school district, that needs to be adjusted, and it's not a sheriff's office contract issue. So, I mean, that's why this is good. This is the way this is supposed to work. And Mayor, I appreciate that giving time to everybody so that we can, kind of work through these things. And so this is good. So that one, I'll say, it's not a contract issue for tonight for the sheriff.
Thank you.
Can I go to my next issue? Sure. Okay, thanks. Sometime this year, the Cooney County Sheriff's Office decided to provide us with some really good reports of time reports. They were like 100 pages for January of 2024 and February of 2024. And I really appreciate, because we had asked for them, they gave them to us. So they approved giving us those numbers. And it showed, it was good detailed information. It provided the location, which was Hayden. I think it was location 31, is that correct? Okay, and then it said the unit number, which is the deputy, and then the time spent, and then it went into great detail on what type of call it was. And so that's why these reports were really detailed. And that's the kind of information, I guess, the work I do, that's the kind of stuff that I look at. I'm kind of a weird guy, and I look at sometimes thousands of documents. I sit on the Idaho Board of Medicine Medical Malpractice Pre-Litigation Board, and I have to review literally thousands of documents sometimes. What we heard was that, oh no, there's a glitch in the software, and those reports are not really useful. And so we accepted that. They said that it couldn't be fixed. And, but what I kept in mind was that, that it was approved that they give us that information. What I'm looking for is a way to continue that information to come to us, but without a glitch and without a cost to the sheriff's office. And just to track, to be really clear, I would, again, the fiduciary responsibility of knowing how many hours that we have our deputies in Hayden, and it's not a reflection that they're doing a bad job. We have that responsibility to look at contracts and to look at information and to make sure that the citizens are Hayden, are they getting what is being reported? Well, the reports we were given, we didn't know. So there is a service, it's called Verizon Connect, and I'm only looking at tracking the hours in a geofence around the city of Hayden. Not the location of a specific deputy at any time, where they're going, whatever. They come into the city, it tracks it. It's an independent third party that will give us that information without the types of crimes or what's being reported. And I would ask that we do it to track 10 deputies. And this is what's really cool about it. Verizon Connect will install the equipment for free, and they'll provide the equipment for free. So there's no cost to the county or to us, and it costs $189.50 a month for 10 vehicles. Again, it's track the hours, not the location. And there's be a time savings, if the county doesn't have to report these times in Hayden within their own system, we save them some money. But I would propose that we would make in addition to our contract, this allows us to track the hours of the 10 deputies, which originally they approved. They allowed us to have those reports. I just would like to get that information that doesn't have a glitch in it. And so that's what I'm asking for, is that the contract include, like, and I got a quote from Verizon Connect about this. Anyway, that's my proposal.
Hey, Matt, can I ask a couple questions about that?
Sure.
Does it also track outside the geofence, for instance, if the deputy doesn't live in the city of Hayden and they drive into work?
I don't know all the capabilities. I know that this system is used by tens, or not hundreds of thousands of police departments
Right.
throughout the United States. Now, the other thing I want to mention, and hopefully the sheriff's office wants to hear this, we may find out, maybe we ought to pay the sheriff's office a little bit more money. This will help us determine whether that's true or not. So it's about being fair too. And if we can be fair with our sheriff's department, I mean, that works, and that's kind of where I'm coming from. So.
I have a question. Captain Smart, how many cars potentially could serve the city of Hayden? I know we have our number of 10 via the contract, but we also know that cars come and go based on where they are, the crisis, the response time required, et cetera. So it may be often that Hayden may receive service from a non, if you will, Hayden deputy. So how many cars could be in Hayden giving us service?
So for a week, is that what you're kind of saying?
Just period. What's the
Well,
pool?
we've got a sworn patrol division that, again, I'd have to go and count on the board, actually each spot, but I think we're talking 65 between sergeants and deputies who would patrol on a weekly basis in the county, who then could have the potential to drop into Hayden for any sort of incident.
Is that 65 cars then?
Yes.
Okay, so just hearing this through, the reason I'm bringing this up, Matt, is say we put these transponders in 10 cars and find out out of those 10 cars, there's 500 hours worth, but the sheriff then could be in a position where they say, well, we actually gave you 3,000 hours of service, but the fact is those 5 cars were just in Hayden. So I'm curious what council, have you thought that through, how to, if your goal, if your actual end goal is accurate deputy participatory time in the city of Hayden, how are you going to capture it by only putting transponders in a subset of the vehicles?
I'm not proposing all the vehicles. I'm just saying we're gonna own 6 vehicles with the new contract that we've purchased. I'm only trying to focus in on one set of data, and that is what we in a contract are receiving for deputies. I just want to know how much time those 5. Now, if we want to start to analyze, and this is a deeper investigation, is the citizens of Hayden pay between $3 to $4 million in a public safety fund to the county, which includes Marine, judicial, jail, and deputies, and other support within. And we don't know, because I've asked the question of the county, out of that $3 to $4 million, how many deputies does that pay for in the county? And they said in an email, when I asked Jim Brannon, who then asked the question to the auditor, we don't know. So, to offset what you're talking about, Mayor, is that there's a lot of money being sent to the county, which is right for other positions and other public safety. So I don't want to, I'm trying to look at one set of data based on a contract.
Right.
And that, maybe that information is totally bogus, we get it back, but I think for $189 a month for a few months, it's worth it.
I'm not saying it's a bad idea. I'm just saying, I'm trying to understand your final goal. If your final goal is how many hours of service Kootenai County deputies are spending in Hayden, you're not going to get that by putting transponders in a subset of cars.
That's
If
on
you-
my
Right.
proposals for the 10 vehicles that we are paying for and the 10 deputies.
Okay.
And just to focus in on that.
Okay.
And maybe it's totally bogus. But I'd like to ask the question, and it doesn't cost that much money, doesn't cost the sheriff's office any money. They already approved give us hours.
Yep, I'm not arguing you, just
Just
making
for-
sure.
Just a question, so I want to, Matt, are you asking to have that particular issue on the agenda at another meeting as an action item? Because you don't have that idea of an expense as action item tonight. It's not.
Correct.
agenda.
What I would like to do is amend the contract that allows an hourly tracking to be put in 10 vehicles that are the 10 deputies. That's what I'm looking for tonight. Not for the cost or approving a contract, because I know that's another action item.
And then how would you capture the time when those deputies were serving the city of Hayden, but at the jail or the courthouse? Because
I think-
neither of those locations are within the city.
Speaking with some of the members of the Public Safety Commission, they actually said that in time, you can build a historical percentages based on deputies and how much time they do spend at other, going, because these vehicles are also, as part of the benefit, and that's okay, to take the cars home, so they're readily available to the deputies. And I know they go to the jail.
Well, you hope they do.
Well, are they?
You want them to.
Yeah, no. They're doing a good job. So anyways, I think that just building maybe a database that maybe they can help us with and say, but again, you guys are doing a great job, and I just realize we are tasked with asking questions that affect our taxpayer, and this is a taxpayer issue, the way I look at it.
Sandy?
Mr. Mayor, thank you. So, personally, I'm opposed to this idea at this time. We could look at it later, maybe for the next contract or something, but I think it needs more study and more feedback from the sheriff department themselves. And I'm concerned about the safety of the officers too. So I would like to know if this kind of tracking would affect the safety of the officers on duty, and ultimately if it fulfills the purpose that that our goal would be. So, but I'm opposed to it at this time.
Okay, so it sounds like those details you're asking for, you'd like to come out in the future with discussions with the sheriff's office?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Ed?
If I could ask Councilmember White's question there, or even Matt, who might know, but could tracking these vehicles, is it an open system, or as far as could people hack into it, shall we say, when it comes to the officer safety?
We're not asking for location, we're just asking for tracking hours.
To address that.
We won't know where they are at any
Well,
given
that's what I'm
time.
saying, to address that
So safety issues aren't
safety
there.
concern. Secondly, I agree with the mayor. You're gonna get just partial information, and I believe I understand what Matt, you just wanna know what those cars are doing, okay? But as you say, cars are gonna come in and they're gonna go out, and you're gonna have other vehicles who don't have trackers come in to assist on other calls. And when you just have it on a small number of cars, they could be servicing various calls throughout the day, week, month, year. It's really, I don't know how complete or valuable the information is really going to be, because it is so fragmented, is how I kind of see it happening. But I'm not opposed to having that discussion at another time. But as it relates to putting it in the contract right now, I don't feel this is the time to do it.
Okay. Tom, you want to add anything?
Well, I just want to summarize some of the things I think I've understood and make sure that we're framing the question properly. So, Councilman Roeder said that there's currently already some system that the sheriff uses for tracking hours. Is that a true statement?
So it does. The Spillman system tracks our calls for service and the things that we respond to. But what we found is the system is not built to parcel out individual calls for service and each deputy on it. So it was double dipping, several deputies being on the same call. And then when those deputies went to another call, the system automatically went back in time and recaptured the opening of that first call. I don't know if there's a way to explain it, so let me try this.
You could just simply say the software doesn't accurately record the times.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, yeah.
It doesn't capture, we've tried to work with Spillman numerous times to say, is there a way to have it stop time here for this call for service? Because we're going here. And it doesn't. This one just keeps moving, so it shows that it's an hour. Even though we stopped it 20 minutes ago and went to this thing, it's still tracking that you're on this call for this hour-long time frame.
So do you feel like it's reliable for meeting Councilman Roeder's desires? Or can it be tweaked? Can it be improved?
It won't be to the degree that I think he's asking. We'd always have to say that there's a variance
Okay.
of 10% or so of time. So if we submit a report to you that says it's 1,000 hours, you'd have to understand that maybe that's 800. But again, it also doesn't give you the right perception of several of those calls brought in 10 other resources throughout that week from outside the county that you got that weren't dedicated units.
Okay. But
Can I, go ahead, I'm sorry.
please finish your thought, because
I was just going to ask if I could indulge on one statement from the commission, and Lisa, correct me if I'm wrong. Even the commission at their meeting last time recognized that with us moving to the new facility, there's going to be deputies in and out of Hayden that are going to provide a level over there, particularly on the west side of Hayden, that's not going to be computed or tracked either. I think you have to recognize there's some give and take. We're going to bring in ancillary units. There's going to be ancillary units who are going to patrol Hayden that we're not going to come to you every month and go, where's the money for these guys? On the flip side, give us the grace for the dedicated guys and understand and recognize they had to leave Hayden for this time frame to go support their deputies on this call for service.
And I recall that when this was brought up before, that the sheriff's office has not been too keen on this idea. Is that a true statement?
You talking about a tracking system?
Yeah.
Well, let me ask you this. Do you guys like to be tracked out there in your daily activities and drives, knowing that someone's trying to watch and cater to your needs every moment?
Yeah.
Or would you like the freedoms to know they trust me enough that I'm doing my dedicated job for you today?
Okay. And so I understand what you're saying. Actually, I personally would agree with that. I'm just trying to find out if there's some kind of compromise between these two different ideas on how we could maybe satisfy Councilman Roeder, make sure that we're doing our proper fiduciary responsibility for the citizens of Hayden.
Can certainly give you that report, all the time. Again, it was, one of the commission members, kudos to them. They took the time to go through it, and it's like 70 pages worth of information to try to go to every call and parcel out that this number appears that it's computing more time frame because they weren't actually here at the time they were up on this call for service. I would love to say that we have a person on standby to be able to do that for you every month as well. Who are we going to task to do that time-consuming project? That's why, the mayor brought forth, had us, go to this method. This is in capturing what you guys, these are your stats. These are what you're looking for. This is driving why we're here to help and assist you, not time every day of what we're doing this second of this hour. These are the calls for service that we're going to. But I guess to answer, certainly give you that report and you can see all the calls for service that we go to and whatever time is calculated on that. Not trying to hide anything. We are here to service your citizens. We're not trying to negate the fact that we have a responsibility here in the city of Hayden. Sheriff has never said that either. He says we are here to provide the best service we can for the citizens of Hayden.
Okay.
But there are give and take and ebb and flows.
Are you done?
Yeah, I'm done. Thank you.
Thank you. Is this report that we've been talking about, the 700 pages, I've been on several ride-alongs, and there's a screen in the car you know, that pops up everything and shows all the, is this report basically a capture and recap of that screen throughout a shift or a day or whatever?
Correct.
Yeah, and so I think I understand what you're saying about the time inconsistencies of when someone arrives and may leave to another call, how it works on, yeah, I've seen
Yeah.
that screen, so I think I understand. What you're saying.
Unfortunately, you know, the system, it's computers, and computers can't always judge how many things are going on in the world at the same time sometimes. So it's calls for service, and you've seen it, there's
Yeah.
15 calls on the screen, 4 dudes working, not gonna be at 15 locations at one time. So what call gets held? But it's on the screen so that we
When
know
that
to
call-
go to it.
When that call initially appears on the screen is when that clock starts to calculate the time, and that's where the inconsistency comes, because that deputy may not make it to that scene for 20 minutes. But according to what's on the screen, that he is on site when it appears on the screen, or, because I know, it seems to me when they arrive, they call it in and it pops up.
A little bit of a hybrid. The call can be on the screen, but as soon as the deputy assigns that I'm going to handle that.
Okay.
That's when the clock starts on our time that would be attached to the deputy's responsibility.
Even though he may not arrive for 10.
Beforehand, if nobody ever puts their radio number to it, well, it can sit there for a long time and just calculate that it's in limbo. But as soon as the deputy says, I'm en route to it, but that's the rub of it. The deputy's en route to it, and all of a sudden, this priority call comes out. He's got to leave this thing here. The system struggles in capturing, this is a call for service that can be handled by phone whilst he's driving to another call for service. He's handling 2 things at the same time for citizens, that it doesn't compute that as, you know, separated time out.
Yeah, I think I don't know how many people have gone on these ride-alongs, but they are very educational. And I can say that I saw that, have seen it happen many times. On the way to a call, a deputy will get on his phone and deal with another call on there too. So there's just so many elements, so many factors that come into this that I think are really very difficult to accurately, I don't want to say quantify, in the report. So again, it's just one of these situations where.
You could certainly tell a Hayden deputy, it sits on the screen and you don't assign yourself to it and you handle 1 call at a time. But then we're gonna back up on those calls for service and get behind on some others. At what point do we get back on track? And then if we have to do that and hold off, proactive policing is gonna go out the window because we're catching up on all of this stuff that's been pending on the screen. They're doing multiple duties at the same time whilst still, you know, driving around.
This is all great. I know, council, I want to give you all the breadth you need to deliberate, but we are here to either recommend or not recommend approval to sign our contract and supplemental agreement. So I just want to make sure, as we're talking about software, that we're continuing to move towards that ends. I'm not sure that we are.
One question?
Yes, sir.
And Captain Smart, I know that Councilmember White said that reporting hours puts the deputy at risk. You're worried
I
about their
didn't say
safety?
hours, I was saying the tracking.
Okay, I'm not proposing tracking.
This was called geo-tracking.
Right, it tracks the hours. You understand that that's my proposal? It's not tracking the individual deputy anywhere. And so I want to ask the question, be clear, is that if you track just hours, does that put deputies at risk?
Don't know enough about the system you're talking about. It sounds like if you're talking about just a line, and so as soon as they entered into this line, it just triggered a start time, but it's not tracking a GPS location.
It doesn't.
Then at first blush, I would say, well, if it's not tracking their location constantly, then I would say no. But I find it hard to believe that it's not tracking a GPS at all times to ensure that they don't somehow cross out of the fence line, if you will. And then I think one of the members also had asked about, is it hackable? No idea. I don't know what they're going to tie into. I don't know if they're trying to, if it ties into some sort of a system that we already have in place. That would be a concern for IT to at least look at and vet to ensure that it's not going to mess with something there that they can, by getting into this, could they get into another system of ours? I don't know.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, thanks, Ed.
I think that this is a discussion that might need to be put on a future agenda to have a more of a complete discussion. I think we've seen here tonight that there's a lot of elements, but as far as the situation at hand right now, I'd like to move.
If you want.
What?
If you don't have the screen.
I'll go off of this one, probably, hopefully I can get it done.
All right.
I'd like to move to approve the agreement with Kootenai County Law Enforcement Services and supplemental term for fiscal year 2025.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Mr. Chairman, or Mr. Mayor, sorry, can we just make the caveat that it's pending approval by the county?
Sure. So added.
So added. Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
I second.
Okay, we have a second. Is there any deliberation required?
I'm not sure if I was supposed to say this now or prior to the motion. I'll just acknowledge, and I understand we're supposed to be laser focused on our mission tonight. But I do
That's an inside
like,
joke.
I do like when we have these open discussions. I learned stuff tonight that I didn't know prior to it, and what I thought was a clear picture is not so clear. And that has been helpful. So I know you want to move along, Mr. Mayor, but I like having these discussions.
Fair enough. Are there any other deliberations that need to be done? May we get a roll call vote, please?
Councilmember Schaefer?
Yes.
Council President Roder?
No.
Councilmember White?
Yes.
Councilmember DePreez?
Yes.
Okay, motion passes. Okay, our second new business agenda item hopefully concludes previous discussion supporting the appointment of volunteer commissioners. Each council member received a protected attorney communications document to guide tonight's deliberations. Appointments to our commissions are made very seriously. Your mayor has been entrusted by the public to exercise his judgment to appoint commissioners for council's approval using a consistent process that has served Hayden for more than a decade. So that introduces item 4B. This is another item that's just basically going to be a collaboration or not collaboration, I want to say.
The deliberation.
Thank you, deliberation. She has words. So if anybody wants to start, go ahead, please.
I can start, Mr. Mayor.
Okay.
So, I'm checking my email and first of all, either it slipped by me or I did not see this confidential email that you referenced, so I'm a little bit at a disadvantage.
I can print it for you.
Okay, thank you. However, I did share through Administrator Airport communication I had with the mayor of Rathdrum, Mike Hill, and I reached out to him based upon something that Councilmember White said 2 weeks ago when we discussed this at Roundtable. And I wanted to entertain the idea that there could be a different way to address this issue as far as commission appointments being put on the consent calendar. And so I spoke to the mayor of Rathdrum, and they do it differently than we do. They actually have all candidates come before their council, and they are interviewed. And the council has actually made it a stipulation that if a potential candidate is invited to the interview and does not show up, then they are not considered for that position. Now, last meeting, it was brought up, and I captured this concern clearly, which is that we walk on thin ice when we do those kind of public interviews because we could tread over into discussing things that are HR sensitive, and I want to acknowledge that. But it's my personal opinion that it would be nice, it would be a benefit to the citizens of Hayden if council had more, the right word escapes me, but if they had more preliminary chances to understand who is being considered for commission positions, and some of the more consequential commissions we have, such as planning and zoning, and I think we also have authority over who's appointed to the Hayden Urban Renewal District. Is that a correct statement? So everybody should have had a copy of my email that I forwarded through council, or through Administrator Airport, and in that was a link to the agenda for an April 24th meeting that the city of Rathdrum had, and then a link also to the YouTube recording of that council where they actually discussed, they had the interviews and the discussions with the council. So at that, I wait for opinions and rebuttals from my fellow council members.
Ed?
Thank you. Yeah, I received your email, and I saw it at about 4:28 or whatever the heck it was, and quickly, thank you.
Should be 3 pages.
Okay, I'll turn this off.
I'm gonna say that that's not my, I send it early in the day, but
Well, I know, I'm just saying,
Yeah.
I mean, I don't get notification, but I looked at it, so I quickly tried to digest it. I watched the video. And I don't know if Mike can tell us right now how many people are watching live. Is there any way that Mike could respond to that? But they were very similar to what we're looking at right now at the Rathdrum meeting. There were 3 or 4 people in the audience. I don't know how many people we have on air. Again, I think it gets back to, I believe I said this at the last thing. We have 6 people online? Thank you, Mike. This gets back to, it's a feeling of micromanagement. We have to trust the mayor and the staff in that they are vetting, that's a nice word, isn't it? These people, and then providing the council with the information. We get their applications and whatever they have submitted. And we have the opportunity at that time to say yay or nay. And if we say nay, then it's up to the mayor and the staff again to come back with another one. I fear in the environment that we're in now, and there's no doubt that it can, in the end, happen anyway, and it probably does, that it's going to turn into what we're seeing more and more of, is ideological taking sides. People wanting their guy in there because their guy has this particular partisan ideology. I just, again, I think we have to trust in the mayor and the staff to present us with their recommendations. And if at that time we don't approve it, that's our time to say no. And we can go through the process until we can all agree. To bring people in and have them sit for interviews, if you want to call it that, again, as has been stated already, you tread a thin line. If you ask the wrong question, or you don't ask one question of one person and ask it, you have to ask the same questions of them all, I believe, nowadays, or people can have claims for discrimination or whatever type of thing. I just think that, and again, I think I said this last time, we have commissions that have several empty seats because we can't get people. People don't even want to participate. And I'm not saying, take any all-comers, because I think somebody used the example of, you have some serial murderer or somebody's wanted in other states. You don't want that stuff. But still, again, I'll end it here by saying, I believe it's best that we have faith and trust in our staff and our mayor to present us with candidates for, and the ability to look at them before we either approve or deny.
Okay. Any other comments?
Yes, I have some comments. Well, I like what Rathdrum is doing. I think it's great that they have the appointees come before the council. And for the council members to be able to ask some questions. And I don't agree with you, Ed. I think we're nice people and I think it would be a great experience to be able to interview the commissioners coming in and have some transparency, let the people see who's going to be serving them. In the spirit of Idaho statute 50210, let me see if I can find it again. I've got lots of papers here. It talks about that not only is it for the purpose of advice and approval, but it's also for the city council and the mayor to work together to find people that would serve the council members and serve the staff and everybody. So I think that's important that we have input and also we're able to interview people. And I was interviewed, I was on the agenda when the county commissioners voted to put me on the airport board. That was a new business item just last month. So that's what the county commissioners do routinely. Excuse me. I would like to ask Fonda a question though about her, about the
memorandum that you.
memorandum. Yeah, let me find what I wrote here. So first of all, I was noticing in the different suggested processes for the city of Hayden, number 3. It says council holds public meeting and council deliberation, which can still occur with the item on the consent calendar. So are you still saying that we should have, that if it's in the consent calendar, we can still talk about it?
Yes, you
And
can still
deliberate on it.
deliberate consent.
Okay, and we
you
can also
still
vote
make
no on it in the consent.
Still make a request to remove the item from consent and have it be a separate action item as well. So, and I want to add some clarification here to the agenda that Councilman Schaefer is referencing in regards to the process for the city of Rathdrum, to make sure you're all talking about the same thing. So this is an action item. They have an action item for the appointment of each recommended position that the mayor brings forward. So we're not talking about deliberating who the nominee is going to be. We're talking about how much involvement you want at the time after the mayor brings the nominee forward with regards to questioning that person. So I just want to make sure the record's clear for the public that this isn't a conversation about deliberating who the nominee is going to be. Are we all understanding the same thing? Because as indicated in my legal memo, this is all rooted in the U.S. Constitution, and it's a process that's patterned after a presidential nomination for a judicial appointment that then goes to the Senate for confirmation. So the Senate doesn't get involved ahead of time in trying to help the president decide who that nominee is going to be. Not in the public meeting anyway.
Yeah,
We don't know what
I was
goes
about
on
to say.
behind closed doors. But it's the confirmation of the nominee that's brought forward by the president. And that is the same process that this is patterned after. So I just want to make sure we're all talking about the same point in the process and that you're making a decision on process that has you all envisioning it the same. So is that clear or mud?
No, that's absolutely clear. I understand what you're saying.
Well, I wanted to
Then go ahead, I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
I wanted to
interrupted
get
you.
back to the point about voting on it and talking about it and voting on it in consent calendar.
Sure.
So are you familiar with our City of Hayden ordinance number 214?
Well, I can look it up. I don't have your ordinances
Okay,
memorized.
I have a copy of it here. So I would like to read for you.
Well, I can pull it up. Go ahead. Give me 1 second.
Okay. I have enough copies for everybody. Thank you. So this ordinance 214, section 4, addresses the consent calendar. And because we've been putting appointments in the consent calendar and not being able to pull them out to discuss them separately, I thought this was very important to bring up. So section 4 says, when the mayor determines that any item of business, I want to also state that this is a City of Hayden ordinance. It was passed in
But just hold on, I'm sorry, I just need to.
1993.
214 is in relationship to Planning and Zoning Commission only?
No.
Under your code?
No, she's looking at ordinance number.
Oh, not code.
You're looking
I'm
at a
looking
title and
code.
code.
I'm looking
So
at
I
your
wanna be-
code.
Sorry.
So I would be really careful.
I want
because
to
don't know if it
acknowledge
was-
for the record too that it's unclear at this moment in time whether or not 214 is still an active codified ordinance. So, meaning it could have been superseded by.
Yes.
And
So-
nobody's been asked to do the research to figure that out at this point.
So,
Okay,
yeah, this
sorry.
caught my attention because it matches the same kind of requirements that every other city I've been reading about has. So like Coeur d'Alene and even Burley has the same kind of statement in it. So I'd like to read section 4. When the mayor determines that any item of business requires action by the council, but is of a routine and non-controversial nature, he may cause such an item to be presented at a regular meeting of the council as part of the consent calendar. A, the consent calendar shall be introduced by a motion to approve the consent calendar and shall be considered by the council as a single item. B, there shall be no debate of discussion by any member of the council regarding any item on the consent calendar beyond asking questions for simple clarification. C, an objection by any member of the council to inclusion of any item on the consent calendar, that item shall be removed. And D, approval of the motion to approve the consent calendar shall be fully equivalent to approval, adoption, or enactment of each motion, resolution, ordinance, or other item of business thereon, exactly as if each had been acted upon individually. Approval of the motion must be by roll call vote. So I bring that up because every city I've been studying about that does a consent calendar use this same kind of practice. And the word consent implies unanimous consent. And so when we're passing or voting on a consent calendar where not every council member approves of everything that's on it, we are violating unanimous consent. So that's, I think that part of our process of this selection of commission members should be brought out of the consent calendar so that it can be as new business. And again, we're nice people. We're not going to go blasting people in the middle of a meeting. If they've gotten to this approval process and they're here, there's nothing to fear. And so, okay. Any other comments? I'm done.
I have some final thoughts, rebuttal, or not rebuttal, just clarification. So, first of all, Councilmember DePriest brought up the fact that we should avoid micromanaging. I 100% agree. And the fact is that if I was acting in completely selfish means, I wouldn't be so concerned about this because I just want to like rush it through and get it done with. But on the other hand, is that serving the best interests of the community? As far as being political in nature, I guess I would ask that you trust that I'm going to be above board on that and be fair-minded if I were involved in such an interview process. The last thing I want to bring up is that one time before, I actually asked for a commission appointment to be brought out of the consent calendar and it was argued that the council advises and consents, okay, and I'll cite, this is March 26th this year. And the response was that the council advises and consents on nominations, and while, so this is my statement. I argued that the council advises and consents on nominations, and while I believe that the person in question was a great selection, I felt it shouldn't be on the consent calendar. In rebuttal, it was explained that the consent calendar is for items that don't require discussion, and further explained that the terminology advise and consent means to review and approve the mayor's appointment. So what this gets down to a procedural thing, that sometimes I don't see who the appointments are until the agenda is published. And it's been my experience that once the agenda is published, it is more difficult than it is easy to have that changed, as such as when I requested that this item be brought out of the consent agenda. So a good compromise might be if we had earlier visibility into commission appointments, where I could see this before it went on the consent agenda. And then for me personally, that might be all I need to satisfy my issues. So I'm throwing that out there as a means of discussion and a proposed idea for maybe a compromise.
If council would allow me, I've purposely kept my mouth shut on this one.
Mr. Mayor, for the public record also on this, would you please explain what, even though the time frame might not be appropriate, what the council members receive in their packet at the time the name is presented to them?
I believe they received their application of the applicant, right?
So they receive the applicant's full application at that time?
Yes.
Okay. So it's not just the name?
Correct.
Okay.
You get to see why I recommended their selection for you. So for council, I want to give you 2 data points and then an important question that I would really appreciate your feedback on. The first one is, there are 201 incorporated cities in Hayden. I'm sure that we could always look.
Hayden?
In Idaho.
In Idaho, thank you. In Idaho, all right, yeah. I'm sure we could always find something we like better. So that is what it is. I'll share with you secondly, 2 years before being elected, Hayden needed a mayor, and I was asked to apply for the job. And even though you guys want to present yourselves as nice people, and I'm not saying you're not, that night I absolutely bombed, and yet here I am doing, in my opinion, a fine job. The point is, you may have a very qualified and well-intended commissioner who just might implode on the podium in front of you, and you might not be capturing, by changing the process, you might not be capturing the very best citizens that we want to help our city. Again, these are volunteers, and even though you don't want to see yourselves as a firing squad, I absolutely guarantee you from experience, that is how I know I felt that night. There's a lot that you may not be aware. You non-verbally communicate when someone's up there and you might be asking them some questions. So I'd ask you to consider that. Lastly, the question, and this is the most important problem, or part, I apologize. Given that we have a handful, how many commissioners do we have throughout the city? Dozens is a fair number? We have dozens. We have had no malfeasance, no misconduct. What problem are you trying to solve? We have a process that has been in place for over a decade. It works. It's transparent because, again, you have the applications in full. You have the ability to call me on the phone and say, I have a concern with this person. You have the ability to pull the agenda item out of consent and put it into new business if you want. What problem are you trying to solve? Are we changing something because we like it that way? I like chocolate ice cream more than strawberry, but if I have strawberry one night because that's what they have, then I eat it, right? I don't understand why the change. What are you trying to solve?
Well, since I brought it up, I'll answer first. I honestly just want the council to be able to hear different perspectives and deliberate on them, and I will respect a final decision, but other ideas have been brought up. We know one city in our county that does it differently, and I just thought I would share that and see how, if that spitwad sticks to the wall or not,
Okay.
okay?
But is there a problem with the current system as it is? Do you see a problem that we need to solve by changing our processes?
I don't really want to have an axe to grind here. I brought up the one issue that happened with me specifically, okay? So,
And I'm just asking, just because I'm honestly curious.
well, you have my answer.
Fair enough. Anyone else want to comment? Anyone else want to answer the question?
I'll go ahead. Ed.
No, go ahead.
I know that we have sometimes troubles finding people to volunteer on commissions because it's a commitment of time and energy and, you know, either if you're working, you know, it's extra time. And so I appreciate the volunteerism that we do get and the commitment. And I think at P&Z where they really have to dig into stuff that's pretty complex. So I don't know that we're running over with tons of people that want to be on specific commissions. Just as a note, I think that if you don't have a lot of people to choose from, you don't have this big pool, you know, it makes it, you can narrow down a big pool, but I don't know that we have a big pool to narrow down in some selection process. So I think about how we've done it where the mayor typically makes a nomination and we can approve it or not. And if it's somebody we don't like, we can vote no. I mean, you have that ability to do some research on your own or talk to the mayor about that person. And so what I'm saying, it has worked for the last, since I've been here, which is almost 9 years. And have there been people that have come before us that we've approved? I don't know that I ever voted no, because we have good quality people. And I appreciate that they want to volunteer. So I'm not seeing something that's broken. Now, if there's and I come here though with an open mind, if there's a better way to do it, I want to hear.
Sure.
And I know that it becomes a can of worms if we start asking specific questions of candidates, because like when we selected the mayor, there were a list of questions that each candidate had asked that made it all even. So for us we as a council can't put that in our own hands. So it seems like it's another layer of bureaucracy to go through that process. And I don't have a burning desire necessarily to change it. So there's where I'm at.
Okay.
Yes, I'd like to say something. So in looking at the statute again of 50210 in Idaho statutes, the first sentence says, "The mayor and the council shall have authority to appoint such boards, commissions, and committees as may be deemed necessary or expedient to assist the mayor and council in better carrying out the responsibilities of their offices." And so I see this as more of a responsibility given to city council members as well as the mayor. And for us to be a representative government, having a part in the decision-making process is very important. Right now, in the process we have been getting the information Friday night after the agenda's posted. So at that point in time, for us to, we would have to call the mayor on the weekend and just, there's just all kinds of different problems with getting things that late. And I don't see why we can't get the information maybe a week before the mayor actually makes a decision. Look at the applications, give advice, and then after the mayor chooses, he places the appointments on the agenda under new business, and then we vote. And according to Fonda in her legal analysis, she said that the approval by majority vote of the council only. So I also don't see how a majority vote of the council only could happen in the consent calendar. So there are a couple of different things that I'd like to see changed. And one is that we actually see the applications before the decision is made, and that we are given the, an opportunity to, like, just go in the office and talk to the mayor about the applications and give our advice. And then when the mayor approves or chooses and places the appointments on the agenda, that it's under new business. And so that's my proposal. Thank you.
You're good. Sure, thank you. Yeah, I have here on my notes too, regarding this. If it were possible, to put the information out to the council a week or two ahead of time, to give the council more time to look at it.
What do you define as information? Because I hear.
The application, whatever information we're getting on, I seem to get it on Thursday most times for some reason. I'm not sure about, it doesn't make a difference to me because
Well, I hear two different
Yeah, I understand.
definitions of information, so.
to get the information that we get in our packet regarding the applicants, okay? This process probably at times takes weeks or months or whatever it is for the mayor to make. So, and I don't know that it has ever become an emergency situation where, boy, this person has to be approved by X by tonight's meeting. So if it means you have to put the information out tonight for the next meeting so that everybody can feel they have a very good opportunity to digest it, to discuss, advise, whatever you want to, however you want to put it. I don't see a problem with that. But again, I'm going to go to this point, and it's not directed at you, Councilmember Schaefer, okay? But the reality is, in this country, and even more so, unfortunately, in this community, we're more and more polarized. And there are groups who are set up and say nasty things about each other. And we only want our person in there. If you put the other person in there, that person's not a good person because they don't think like us. Let's not be what's what I'm looking for here, disingenuous and deny that this stuff isn't going on. I've attended meetings, I've attended groups, I've heard conversations where, yeah, people are looking to put their like-minded people in positions so that when decisions comes up, they go towards that partisanish type of situation. And I'm seeing it happen in a lot of places, and I don't really want to see it happen here. Okay, so that being said, that's my real concern about the process, and again, getting back to the micromanagement and trust. My only thing is, and I agree, if we could get the packet information a week too earlier, where we could all digest it, have our advice with the mayor before it comes to the finalization at the meeting, I think that would suffice. So
Would council put this to bed if, upon selecting somebody to, for your consideration, I could, at that time, send it to you well ahead of your council packets for the agenda meeting and give you time to ask questions or additionally review a person? Would that put this to bed? Of the person that I have selected to bring forth to council,
Yeah, I
just for
just want
clarity.
to remind council that if you agree to this process and the mayor sends you a notification via email with an application attached that says, here's the person I intend to nominate for this position, that you're going to be blind copied so that your reply all button doesn't work. Just FYI.
Right.
It's not an invitation to reply all to an email and have a serial conversation, so.
No, I'm simply asking if I make that compromise, would that put this to bed? I know it's not everything that everyone has asked for tonight, but I've heard Matt say, if I understood him correctly, he's not in favor of changing the process. I've heard Ed say he's not in favor of changing the process, but he would prefer something a little earlier. I've heard Tom say, I think his biggest issue is just getting a little more time. And I've heard Sandy want to change a lot of stuff. So as it is right now, obviously, if you have to vote on something, nothing's going to change, but I don't want this to be where somebody walks away feeling like they got nothing. So I'm offering that as a compromise. I could select a person a week or two ahead of a council meeting, send you a blind copy email and say, here's my person, here's lots and lots of time for you to tell me if you have any issues with it, and we can just go from there.
I think I would add one more thing to that, that you could leave it on consent, but a single council member can request any appointee be removed from consent for an action item.
Yeah, and I apologize if we misled Tom back in March. I kind of always, again, we were new in March. It could have been that we didn't understand, but I always have heard and thought that if a council member wants to not approve a single item, they can approve everything but that and then talk about that one separately.
That's correct.
Whether you pull it out of consent or not, doesn't matter. You're still separating it from the herd.
It's form over substance.
Which is the point. So, and that's where last meeting I was frustrated because I felt like council already had all the tools to do what they wanted to do, with the exception of more lag time. So again, that's the thing I want to offer.
I have just a quick question. Mayor, when you send out information ahead of time, is it only the application, the completed application that we'll get? We won't get a resume, correct? It'll just...
Whatever they've submitted for the position.
Okay, so whatever's asked for, we'll get, which is what the mayor will see. We'll see the same thing.
It's not going to be whatever you ask for. It'll be whatever I receive. If an applicant
Right.
fills out just the application and that's what I conduct my interview on, or the staff and I conduct our interview on, then that's what we're going to give you. I'm not going to hide anything from you. If we have it, I'll share it.
And will that, say we get a week ahead of time, could we call you up after we review it and ask you questions about the applicant? or
You
no?
four uniquely can call me at any reasonable time, any reasonable day of the year.
Except for when he's fly fishing.
That would be unreasonable, Tom. And that invitation is not extended to anyone else. You four uniquely,
Yeah.
well, and Lisa.
And me.
And, all right.
Let's go down the line.
Anyone
All
down the
right.
table?
Sandy?
Okay, thank you. I appreciate your saying that, Mr. Mayor. That means a lot, that we would be able to have that earlier, and that's important. I would also ask a concession that it not be placed in the consent calendar, that it always have a normal spot in new business. And
I'm not against that, but again, to me, I guess, what's the, don't worry about it. I just don't know that we're solving a problem. I don't see any value in it. It's because,
for the
again,
sake of transparency and process.
So Councilwoman White, I just suggested that those appointments, any single council member could move them out of consent on the night of the meeting. Would that satisfy your concern?
Not necessarily, because then it's kind of targeting that person and drawing undue attention to them. And if this was just a part of the process of having it in new business, and we just did it that way, then it wouldn't draw, like I said, attention to that person like there's something going on.
how about this?
Yes.
How about we'll try it?
Okay.
If there's no value added, we'll stick it back in consent. If there's obvious value from the exercise and there's a better way to do it, as Matt says, then we can live it that way.
Okay, thank you.
However, if it's going to be an individual action item and not on consent, and any of you intend to ask questions of the mayor about his appointment the night of the meeting, you need to run those past me first. Because there are conversations and questions that you just should not be asking in a public meeting about an individual.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, sir.
thank you.
That's a good-
Thank you to the rest of the council for entertaining my ideas and allowing me to be heard, and I appreciate all the feedback. And
I'm just going to clarify, this is not requiring the appointee to be here for you to ask questions of them.
And I understand
Okay.
that. And my goal in all of this was to just get a robust debate and discussion and see where common ground lies.
All right,
Thank you.
so council, can I close item 4B without any action?
Do we need an action?
It's an action
Or
item.
just
It's
word?
listed as an action item for
Right, but I,
cautionary measures, but I
Right.
think the mayor has, it's up to you. If somebody wants to make a
I did write out a motion, if I can read it.
Is it consistent with the consensus?
Yes. There you go. Yes. Motion on commission appointment process according to Idaho Code, Idaho Statute 50210. Number 1, advice. The mayor gives the council members access to the applications that he's considering a week before he makes his decision.
So can we pause right there?
Yes.
Because you keep saying applications.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just.
Application or
It's just the
applications?
application for the potential nominee.
Okay. Okay. And approve, number 2 is approve. The mayor chooses and places the appointments on the agenda under new business. And I also have number 3, approval by majority vote of the council only, based on what you said in your brief.
Abby, would you reread that so we make sure that all the council members are clear on what the motion says, please?
If I could ask Councilmember White to restate that for the record, I did not
Yes.
have that.
Well, before she does, so if you do take action on this as an action item and you decide to change the process in the future to move them back to consent, it'll require another action item. Rather than just trying it as has been suggested and then discussing it again
Okay.
in the future.
I'm fine with that.
Okay.
You want me to hand it to you and let you read it, or you want
If
me
you'd
to
like to
restate
restate it. I would
Okay.
appreciate that.
Starting from the beginning?
Yes.
Motion on commission appointment process, Idaho Statute 50-210. Number 1, advice. The mayor gives the council members access to the
Nominee application.
nominee application that he's considering a week before he makes his decision. Number 2, approve.
It's not a week before he makes his decision.
Okay,
It's after he's made his decision, but a week before the normal posting of the packet.
okay.
We could just skip the motion if you guys want. I'll do it. I mean,
I think it might be easier.
Yeah, I'm good with that too.
Is that the consensus?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
all right, thank you, council. All right, we're going to move on to item 5A, which is City Administrator Report and Calendar Review. Lisa, do you have anything for
I have a
tonight?
lengthy report.
Come on,
No, I'll be quick, promise. I'm going to do my best to try to keep council apprised of some of the things that have been going on leading up to the council meeting. So those things that happened in between the last week, the last council meeting and this one, and then also just things coming up on the horizon. I will endeavor to put this in writing to you as well, but just to let you know, we have basically 3 projects that are currently in some form or fashion of wrapping up on the public works side of things, and Alan, who's here tonight, can correct me if I have any of these wrong. Currently, we have the Hayden Meadows sidewalk project that's wrapping up. I believe that's now been open, and we are working towards maybe a ribbon cutting as a result of that project finishing. The Phase 2 sewer project, this is the Ramsey Road project, putting the sewer in from, remind me of the streets, Dakota to Wyoming, thank you. And then currently, I have on my desk in my hands the H6 force main and lift station projects that we're looking and likely to come back before council for authorization to bid. So excited about that project. Under planning and zoning, I asked Donna if she could just give us a little update on the trends related to the building department. You know, as we look at the year, you're going to see kind of some peaks and some valleys. I think in our department, it's more like a peak and a plateau. So I don't know if you have a quick summary you can give them on how we're doing on building permits.
Well, I have your kind of the building trends that we put out on the city's website. Once a month, we put out building trends that are a year to date over the course of the last 5 years. And so I'm going to just kind of pass that away and you can hand that back. So just as a kind of a conversation piece, we've issued 122 residential building permits this year. That's about half of what we did last year, if you look at the numbers. But part of that is because we issued several building permits at the end of last year, and they anticipated a 2-year build. So although they got the building permits, they haven't really broken ground on part of those building permits. So it gives a kind of a very skewed kind of conversation. Yes, Ed.
Are those related to the 74 townhomes at all?
No, it's more in relationship to the fact that we've got a couple of projects, and I'll just say it, Hayden Canyon has
That's
been in
what I
the
was
works
thinking.
for a really long time. They were able to get their, two of their phases up and running, and they came in and bought all of the building permits that they could by their master development agreement in anticipation of finishing the H6 agreement, which is close and getting close, but they were kind of have 2-3 different builders out there, and so they were all kind of scrambling, trying to get to those building permits first. And so they knew that they were getting ahead of time, but that's why those numbers are kind of skewed. We do have the potential of Hayden North, which has been a multi-phased project north of Lancaster, finishing up the last phase and going to final plat, hopefully in the next few weeks, maybe the next month, maybe. They've worked on finishing up their lift station and their final improvements. We anticipate seeing those building permits kind of going out the door. What we have had is really good luck with the development community that has building permits that they anticipate building in the spring or the summer, like of next summer, that they have turned in those building permits, which kind of keeps our workload for our whopping 2 building plan reviewers and building inspectors pretty steady. So we don't have that ebb and flow going on a lot. We're just really nice and steady. But the flip side is like today, my 2 building inspectors had 66 inspections out in the field today. So we do have days that are really, really long, and they're able to keep up with that workload. So things to think about in the future. So yeah, we're pretty steady. We've got a pretty steady market as far as what we're anticipating for next year to be pretty consistent with that $150 to $200 amount. And these year-to-dates are actually calendar, so they're January to December, not fiscal year. It's important to know.
So, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
As far as the budgeting that we did, you base it on what you just said. You anticipate things to remain fairly steady,
Right.
based on the numbers this year.
And I was going to cover that in a moment.
Yeah.
And then if you go down and look at the non-residential construction permits, you'll see that those look to be a little bit lower than last year. So again, if you go out and you look at Atlas and Hayden Avenue, actually go Atlas in Dakota, and you look north of that, you've got the Doherty Park, Commerce Park out there. And that is one big lot, and it's got 42 or 44 basically incubator businesses that are out there. And so that's an office, a small office, and warehouse space, and they've been building those consistently. So those larger numbers that you see of last year of 34 was kind of a streamline to get that going. And then this year, we're back in the 28, so we're pretty consistent with the first 3 years that you kind of see there. So just, it's a really consistent, steady kind of growth.
Thank you, Donna. So do you have anything else?
Yeah, just a couple things. We were able to get our law enforcement update for August, and since the 2 deputies are here, Captain Smart's here, if you wish to let him speak on that, therefore B.
Thank you.
He sent this to me today earlier, but I didn't get to it until. Didn't skip it.
So Captain Smart,
And then I was hoping really quickly to just cover budget stuff, so if you could just indulge me a moment. You guys will get these while I drown you with some numbers. I also,
My intent was just to spring this on you so you didn't have any questions and we can be done for tonight.
I was going to ask, let's have like some kind of a cadence to this, just some consistency, maybe where you deliver the report the first and then on the second meeting, take questions about it or something like that. That way council's not having to just knee-jerk react to a piece of paper. Does that sound reasonable?
we can work on that.
All I ask is for a key of acronyms. Where? Oh, I'm sorry.
So the point is, I don't want to have you get peppered tonight with a
Got
bunch of
it. I
kind of.
apologize. I was not observant enough.
I'm okay, I'm ready, anytime.
I mean, just quickly glancing at it, offenses, reported offenses are down. I mean, I'm trying to glance, year-to-date 10, for aggravated assaults, 10 to, last year was 16, 13, 11, 3 years ago. Arson, thank goodness. Auto burglaries look like they're about the same. Residential burglaries, 2 compared to 11.
Theft is way down.
Yeah, burglary, residential, 7 and 10. Rape, we appear to have a problem. Theft, 96 compared to 130 and 120. Vehicle theft, 1 compared to 4. Assaults, people seem to have a problem.
Ed, we have 3 more months left.
Yeah.
Four
Well,
more
no,
months
that's
left.
year-to-date. Isn't it year-to-date, and then the other column says year-to-date.
Oh, it is all year-to-date. Is
Come
that,
on,
is that
man.
accurate?
Correct.
So that is through,
Yeah. So-
August of last year, et cetera?
In general terms, am I correct in my?
Can I ask you a question? I know you guys are trying to be quiet, but it's really super distracting. Thank you. Thank you.
My just cursory evaluation here kind of suggests that crime or related is on a decline compared to last year and the previous years, or am I just kind of wishful thinking?
That's don't lie, sir. I'm seeing it like you are, and I would have to agree. I mean, I'm not seeing anything different out there myself to say I disagree with those. Those are the numbers that we're being able to pull from the system, so far I would say we're.
2023 is when the the additional law enforcement contract was kicked in, right?
Correct.
So it might have taken the criminals a year to figure out that you're here, and that's why we're seeing 2024 down so low.
Captain Smart, could I ask a clarifying question? Is it year-to-date, January to date, or is that from August of last year to date? So are we looking at a year, or are we looking at just the calendar year?
It's January to August,
Okay.
and so that previous year to date is also January to August of 2023.
Oh, okay.
So they're supposed to, the intent is that they're mirroring, time and space compared to last year's time and space.
Do you have any, I'm looking at the same old hotspots, Walmart, Honeysuckle, and Lancaster Market. Is that a new one, Lancaster Market? But something tells me the activities are probably shoplifting type of stuff, or drug activity in and stuff like that in large convenient locations for in and outs.
So I pulled up what that one was. We've done a few more security and business checks up there, meeting, with the managers at night, checking in on them a little bit more and logging that as, a call for service to let them know that we're here for them.
Oh.
And so maybe a little bit misleading. There were a few more incidents that happened up there. We assisted ISP had a, DOI stop up there as well. And we did have a couple suspicious things. Nothing of truly noted there at the Lancaster Market specifically, but we did a few more business checks up there.
Okay.
With the Honeysuckle Beach one, I had that broken down. Again, it's kind of innocuous, couple suspicious calls. If you look at those, some people concerned about somebody on the beach that they didn't think was appropriately sitting there watching people. Usually they're unfounded. Again, several parking problems, but then again, just some more routine patrol checks throughout the night, ensuring that nobody's down there after hours doing things they're not supposed to be.
Can you say where, the ones that jump out at me, the assault, aggravated assault, and unfortunately, the rape's a little high. Are these these domestic issues, or are they happening out in public places? Do you know?
Well, if you're talking about the year-to-date number one, I don't know specifically. The 2 aggravated assault ones, one of them was, there's a transient in the area right now, and there hasn't been anybody, a victim to truly come forward to say that they want to press charges. And he's walking around with a case that carries, is it a pellet gun, Zach? It's a pellet gun, but it looks like a rifle. And at the gas station of the Phillips 76, there was word that he had brandished that. We went there, but there was no victim who wanted to report a crime on it. So it's logged as a call for service that we went there for that crime. But were any charges filed on it? No, there were not on that. And then there was also, Zach, was it a road rage incident? That there was a road rage incident that I think we submitted charges to the prosecutor on that, but that's what the other one was. And as it was dealing with vehicles, which are considered deadly objects, it categorizes it as an aggravated
Is that just
assault.
recently?
Yes.
Yeah, I heard. Yeah.
And then let's see, what was one of the other ones that I was gonna bring? Well, if you look at the mental health calls for service down there, that's slightly larger than the previous months, because again, as I told you, we're trying to capture that data differently and better to reflect the true number of calls we're going to on those. And so by taking a specific path of deputies noting it in the system differently, those have increased, but it's just a true, more accurate representation of what's always been going on. We just haven't been able to capture it by putting in a call for service like it. So that should stabilize. Probably you'll see that being similar moving forward. It's not that all of a sudden we had a spike in that. It'll probably be closer to that number moving forward.
Captain Smart, anything else you'd like to report?
No, I mean, again, the intent is to get this to you earlier. Again, we're just trying to dial in and make sure that the product is, you know, ready and solid for you to review. And in the past, some of the times it's always fallen on like payroll week, which muddies up the process with staff doing other duties before we get to this. But we're gonna try to bring this in sooner, so we can get that to you.
We appreciate it, and thank you for coming tonight. I know you had other plans originally, so thank you for being here.
Yeah, yes, I'm Lisa
I
knows.
wanna know
That's
if
with my exercise time.
If I want to go on a ride along, how do I initiate that?
We don't allow that anymore.
It depends, you want to ride the car or the back?
So
You're not going to deputize?
the general public should know that we do often reserve that for applicants specific, those who are interested in the agency and applying for us. But we can certainly try to set something up for you to see and ensure that you can understand.
So would I just contact the
process.
sheriff's office to do that?
You can contact myself, you can go through Lisa
I
to
can
let
go.
me know,
All right.
something like that. So,
We could just have Tom commit a crime. You could put some bracelets on him and
Get
drive
the
him all
reality.
around.
You can just put it in
yes,
the back.
there are several different avenues to get a ride.
That's what I'm getting at. You can get a free ride.
You get a tour of the jail?
Where will you be later tonight?
Hot in a
We can
cot?
certainly facilitate something.
All right, thank you very much.
thank you.
All right, moving on to item 5C.
Wait, Mr. Mayor, I would
whoa.
just, one other thing.
One
I told
more
you I
thing.
had-
All right, no, go ahead. Of
I
course,
want to make you guys aware of an attempt that we're working towards, and we will refine this process as we get more time to produce a monthly, kind of where we sit financially in the budget year. So there is one correction I want to make, and it's an error I made on my end, this is not Natasha's problem, this is what happens when you give a city administrator an Excel format, is sometimes I make mistakes that I didn't catch until now, and that is under the fiscal year anticipated end. I unintentionally thought we were getting another highway distribution deposit in September, but that is actually only for sales tax revenue. So it's a difference at the bottom there, about $450,000 that would come off the anticipated revenue. Still, when you consider where we sit right now, which we're a month away from the end of the fiscal year, we're doing quite well as it relates to our revenue and expenses, consistent with the general fund. And then if you look across the other two summary level funds, again, the first page is the summary of the 3 fund accounts that we have. And then the remaining pages are the more detailed information behind those funds. And then if you want more, we have 66 more pages we can give you, but I'm trying to hopefully get you guys summary level information. But as we work towards getting this a little bit more dialed in, we will show you those changes as they happen. But again, just helping you guys see where we sit at the end of August.
And if council has any questions on that report, the only request I have is please call to make an appointment if you want time with Natasha or Lisa to understand the documents.
Happy to answer any questions that you might have. And that concludes my report.
Thank you. Moving on to item 5C, does any council member have a roundtable discussion item they wish to bring up? Okay, I'm hearing none. Yes, go ahead, Sandy.
Yes, I was just, I just wanted to mention that ordinance 214 that I brought up, the Hayden City ordinance, that I'd like to have us look at that a little closer, and Fonda, if you would look at the other ordinances and just bring us up to date on the consent calendar process.
So you want, I'm unclear as to what you're
Yes.
asking, I'm sorry. You want me to look at whether or not 214 is valid, first of all,
Yes.
number one, the ordinance that you brought forward tonight. And number two, is there an adopted policy within the city regarding the consent calendar?
Well, I would like us to have a policy about the consent calendar that reflects that council members can remove an item and have that be part of our, like in the city of Coeur d'Alene and Post Falls, they have a paragraph on the agenda that mentions the proper use of the consent calendar.
Do you want that, we had this conversation one other time, so I'll need to look back at our previous minutes, because I think we had this as an action item before. But I will look, I can't remember. I just know we've talked about it several times, so
Okay.
we'll look back, and I just wanted clarification on what your expectation is of me.
Well, I have a question for that. If this is a question that Abby can answer, would that be better than, I mean, as much as I love our lawyer, she costs us money.
That was my question.
That analysis that we went through tonight cost us money.
$350.
Yeah, that was.
That's,
Okay.
and so.
Yes, let's start with Abby.
So
See if that-
if I could
Reach
jump
the
in though on
end
the
of
validity of ordinance 214, I want to be clear, the ordinance in and of itself is a valid ordinance. It's signed and it's part of our records. Whether or not it's codified and current, meaning it hasn't already been,
Or repealed.
or hasn't been repealed or replaced, then we can, the current ordinance that's on our website is our codified ordinance. So if it's not with, the text of this isn't within the city's codified ordinances online, then it's not a current, it's been repealed, I'll
It
go
was
with that.
1993, I believe, I saw the date.
So I'm quickly checking to see, and I'm going to go with that I have not seen this on our current codified ordinance, so therefore it has likely been repealed and no longer an active ordinance. But we will confirm that and report back to you.
Thank you.
Okay. Anything else, Sandy?
No, thank you.
I have one thing for item 5C. Our airport has received federal monies. And my question to council as a body, do you as a body have any guidance to Sandy, who is our airport representative from the city? I don't want to put her in a position where she's having to guess your intentions if you have guidance for her. Obviously, the alternative would be she would just take notes, bring them back to council at the time. But if you had any proactive guidance, for example, please make sure the airport doesn't expand anymore into Hayden, that could be some guidance. Then I think this might be an appropriate time to have this conversation.
Thank you. Yeah, that was my main thing. I think I communicated that in an email. Whatever this amount of money is, I don't mind improvements in the operations aspect of it, but I don't personally, and I don't think anybody wants to see any money go towards expanding runways or facilitating larger, more flights of larger planes and increases in commercial flights and the like. So I would hope that that money does not go towards those type of activities.
So Fonda or Lisa, is there any specific action that is a verbal by council enough to say, yes, as a body, we agree? Does there need to be an action item or?
If you want to have any discussion on this, it still needs to be agendized. It really is not a council comment, appropriate during council comment period.
Okay.
So if there is to be a discussion to, gain consensus from council on direction regarding the airport, that needs to be agendized as a discussion item.
Okay, so can we add that to the next agenda then, please?
Yeah, and I think to the degree which, how the funds are used, to the degree which they have limitations on what they can do with it, we'll find out.
Okay. Do those funds come to the city to then give to the airport, or they go to the airport? And how?
I'm guessing they go to the county commissioners who runs the airport budget, so,
But
but that's just
if
my
it's given to
anecdotal.
Hayden, if they're designated
So
to
you need some
Hayden.
research done. You have
I
some
don't know it was
questions.
given to Hayden.
No, it was given to the airport.
Airport, yeah.
It was given to the airport, so I don't see the
On the
city
list we got, it listed Hayden.
listed the
It said the
location.
cities that the airports were within, so they commented that
Okay.
it being within the city limits, which we know it's.
Again, my goal there is not to set Sandy up for failure, right? We all want to be successful in that position. All right, so is that it for our 5C? I guess then the next item we need to do is go into executive session. Yes,
Audience member has to comment.
Hi, I apologize. I should have responded when you read number 3, but I didn't hear it. This is my first time. I'm Joy Cassidy, and I wanted to speak as a visitor about a problem in my neighborhood. And I didn't submit this form at the time. I didn't know. Is that okay?
Just let her have her public.
Yeah, go ahead, Joy.
I apologize. And when
That's all
I
right.
come back in the future, I won't make the same mistake.
Oh, very good. So Joy, the only thing I'll ask is, for the record, just to state your name and the primary city you live in, which
Yes.
is obviously Hayden.
My name is Joy Cassidy. I live here in Hayden, in Leisure Park, 1478 Westwood Lawn Drive. I'm a retired police sergeant, 25 years, not from this area, from Virginia. I moved back here from where I'm from here 20 years ago. It's a lovely, lovely area. I've always loved it. I missed it when I was gone, but I've been so concerned by the lack of police protection wherever I've lived here, including Coeur d'Alene. But Hayden, I have lived here for 8 years. And as you probably know, Leisure Park is mostly a senior community. It's basically 40 and older because we never followed through on the CCREs with 55 and older. But most of our residents are older folks. I'm 72, but a lot of these folks have difficulty seeing and hearing, and we're pulling out onto Honeysuckle Avenue. I'm sure you're familiar. It's between Ramsey and I-95 I-95. And my house faces the houses that back up to Honeysuckle. And while you can take the girl out of the police department, you can't take the police department out of the girl. So I'm always watching, looking and listening to help my community stay safer. And I hear at that intersection, and I'm not working now, so I sit out on my beautiful porch and I hear those motorcycles, and I've chased many a one, and the illegal mufflers on the trucks and the SUVs revving up after they've stopped. They go tearing down the street, 295, and I can see them blow by through this little opening between the two houses across from me, and they're doing 70 to 90 miles an hour. The speed there, as you know, is 35. And all studies have shown 80% of Americans, and this is nationwide, do 10 miles over. So while 45 is acceptable, anything over that is not. And we're going to be pulling out of that intersection one day, somebody, and they're going to get hurt or killed. Now, I've been reporting to the deputies on a regular basis, and God bless our men and women in, I guess it's green now. My uniform was navy blue, used to be brown and tan. I talk to these guys and gals all the time. I report the dates and times this is happening. 10 in the morning, 1, 2 in the afternoon, 4 or 5, and this is on weekdays, not to mention on the weekends. And you know what they tell me? They're doing the best they can. They can't sit out there and have a speed trap for very long. So I called the mayor's office last Wednesday, and they sent emails to each of you, as well as the mayor, asking that this be addressed. And believe me, I know about manpower situations, woman power. The sheriff's doing the best he can. There are so many of us, we can't clone ourselves, and we do have to pull off and go to a more serious crime. And believe me, they're happening. I look at the crimes all around Leisure Park. There are larcenies, assaults, vandalisms. This is just around Leisure Park. So this speeding issue, we need to have them detailed at different times for half an hour, unless there's a robbery, murder, rape, something nearby, so they can catch these, and I'm sure it's mostly guys, doing this stuff, because, I know. There are probably some girls and women doing it, but catch these violators, because this is a public safety issue. And I don't want to get hurt or killed, and none of my neighbors do, and I don't want it to happen to people across the street or anywhere else for that matter. So please do the best you can. I've been hearing we have 10 deputies, 12 deputies, 9 deputies. Well, it's not enough. You know, we've got almost 17,000 population, 16,787 I saw. Nationwide, chiefs of police and criminal justice experts all recommend 2.6 officers per 1,000 of the population. When I moved to Idaho 20 years ago, Idaho recommends 1.6. Well, I'm sure you can do the math. If we have 12, which I'm not hearing we do, that's less than 1 per 1,000. I'm hearing 10, but we have an SRO officer, and God bless the children, they need to be protected. That puts us down to 9. But as you know, that 9, if they have to go somewhere else and they get sick, they get injured, they need to take time off, or their families are sick and injured, you're not going to have a full complement. So look, I know that the most expensive parts of infrastructure for any city are police, fire, and rescue. Actually, it's schools first. But when you have people move to a community, you've got to have infrastructure. And law enforcement, we're a necessary evil. We're expensive. And it's very stressful for these officers. I know it was for me. And they're on their phones. Well, it's got to be hands-free now, as you know, because that was passed in 2022. They're on their phones, is it Captain Mark? And they're driving to calls, they're looking for violations, they're doing all these things that I did for 25 years, and it burns you out. You know, our nationwide average to die after retirement is 59 years old. I'm 72, I've made it this far. But please do your best, beseech the sheriff to do his best, to have these guys and gals, they've got to sit out there different times, different days of the week for designated periods so that we can be a little bit safer. Thank you very much. I appreciate your time and that you let me come in at the tail end of your meeting.
Thank you,
Do you have
Joy.
any questions?
No, we're aware, and I think we're already talking about honeysuckle specifically. So we did receive your email, and we're already acting on it, and I apologize if we didn't thoroughly enough get back to you.
Okay, and I will say this, Sandy contacted me.
Yeah, she said she was going to.
Yes, okay. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Okay. Now can we move into executive session? All right, our next action item is in support of Idaho Code 74-2061F to communicate with legal counsel for the public agency to discuss the legal ramifications of and legal options for pending litigation or controversies not yet being litigated but imminently likely to be litigated. Can we get a motion?
I'll make the motion, we go into executive session based on Idaho Code 74-2061F.
Second.
Okay, is there any discussion? Can we get a roll call?
Councilmember White?
Yes.
Councilmember Schaefer?
Yes.
Councilmember DePriest?
Yep.
And Council President Roder?
Yes.
Okay, for members of the public, please drive home safely.
Yes.